All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Creative Educator Collective. Creative Educator Collective. Oh my gosh, say that fast. I'm Kanisha Baynard from BoldLivingToday.com, and I'm so excited to be here with the amazing, powerful, creative, beautiful Aquarius, Kristie Betts Letter. Yay! And she's in Colorado, and she's my longtime friend. We've known each other since like 2003, I think it was.
Really long time.
Really long, good time. And Kristie is a writer, she's a teacher, she's a mom, and she is a speaker, and she does amazing work with, well, she'll tell us all about that, but I'm super excited to have her for our Shift and Tell interview, part of our Shift framework for educators, for creative educators. And if you're new here, if you're just joining the Creative Educator Collective, welcome. And if you've been following along with the videos that Carrie Knudsen and I have been doing, welcome back. Carrie and I are really working to invite other creative educators who've made a shift in their career within an educational organization. And then outside, like myself, I'm not affiliated directly with the educational organization, but I do own my own educational consulting business and partner a lot. Whereas Carrie, I have all these K's in my life. Whereas Carrie is still working in a formal capacity and also doing her public speaking. So it's our goal to showcase real live educators doing exactly what we talk about in the Shift framework and the materials we present during that workshop. So, Kristie, how are you tonight?
Hi, Kanisha. You are an amazing person for having me on, and I started off inspired by you, and I remain inspired. So thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled. And Kristie and I, maybe when we get to the confession time, we could talk about how we initially met that day in that parking lot. So yes. Fun. So fun. So stay tuned. You have to watch the whole video to find, or for whatever you want to do. So Kristie, I said a little bit about you, and I didn't want to give everything away because you're amazing and awesome, but tell us a little bit about your current job, your role, your position within your career.
All right. Well, I am currently a teacher. That is my full-time benefited gig. I teach seniors in English, and I teach innovation, which is a course that I designed and invented and am currently making a part of the curriculum at Peak to Peak. And then one thing that I'm really working on, and that was a big shift for me, is I got into teaching English because I love reading and writing, but what I want to be when I grow up is a writer. And so I'm making sure that that creativity is still a huge part of my life, and that it's something that I make time for, and that I have not been always successful at doing that in the past.
Mm-hmm. So when you initially became an educator, and when I say that, I use that in broad sense because I know you've served in various roles within the field of education, but when you got into the field in however capacity you got into it, what was your vision initially for your career as an educator, as a teacher, as a professor?
So I initially thought that I would be a professor, and that there would be a lot of room for the writing and the creativity. And I fell into, in such a strange way, the teaching secondary school, which I loved. I felt like I made a lot more difference than I did at the college level, where I was a little bit preaching to the choir, but also it was a lot harder. It is a lot harder. It remains a lot harder, and it takes up just a lot more of my heart, of my time, and sometimes, and I'm working on this part, of my creativity. So
yeah, but I think that's very common for passionate or multi-passionate educators. It's like we get into the field of education with this content focus, but then we have this broad set of skills that we continue to develop, right? And, based on experiences within the classroom or within a team or what we go on to learn. Like, I know that you almost finished, or you were close to finishing your doctorate. So, you have that expansive knowledge in that particular field, and all that stuff lends itself to, what we're doing right now, or 5 years ago, or 5 years to come. And it never leaves us, but, what are we doing with it right in that moment? It could just be waiting for us. Or,
right.
Or coming out.
There's a lot of potential, but sometimes it's not activated, right? I mean, that's what I was.
Exactly.
sweating. I was definitely sweating that, and I'm still sweating it, and I'm working on it. So
Yeah, but you're in the game, and that's the thing that I find that's so inspiring, especially when we're talking about identity risk and innovation and imagination and creativity. So then, over the course of your career in this field, what would you describe as your top 5 accomplishments? And that's as defined by you.
okay, so my top 5 accomplishments. Gee whizzers.
I know.
I would say that I am most proud of being able to still be a creative writer who is published while teaching full time. That is something that I take because it's so difficult and it took such a change in me to do. I'd say that's something that career-wise I'm super proud of. And then sort of designing curriculum and putting more creativity into what I teach. In terms of my expectations for my students, I stopped teaching to tests, even though I teach AP. I do a lot more creative work. And then kind of along with that as a separate item, I've developed a whole innovation curriculum for our school, which makes me sort of proud. And then what else? 5? Is that the number you said? You said 5.
I did say 5. So I have, your publishing, your curriculum design, using your creativity to develop courses, specifically your current innovation course. So I have 3.
Okay. So then also, I would say that I'm very proud of the fact that even though I absolutely didn't need it, and it meant nothing to my professional life on a monetary level, I went and got an MFA recently because that was part of what I wanted to do for my own shifting and my own passions. And then I am also quite proud of some of the consulting work that I've done and presenting on a national level, writing for the state and going to sort of larger conferences. So that makes me feel fulfilled and as if I have something to share. So I like that as well.
Well, and one thing, you didn't mention so specifically, but I'll throw that out there just because I, as a colleague, as a parent, have benefited from you writing the writer's handbook. It's been very beneficial for my older child. She was at the school where you are teaching. Unfortunately, she didn't get to have you because we moved to California before that happened. So disappointing for us. But, it's such a strong and accessible guide, but it really meets the kids where they are in their development, as the teen mind. But, I might be scholarly, but it still meets me where I am. And I was always just so impressed with you, watching you, learning from you and listening to you, how you would have whatever our design curriculum was. And you're like, you know what, I can, it might be flat right here, but I'm going to shift it to something bigger and better and bolder and teach my colleagues about it. And you just never looked at it as an additional chore. You were just like, I'm passionate about it. I see the need for it. I'm going to shift into this direction. I just always admire that about you because that's not something that teachers always hold on to when they've been in the game for a while. Sometimes that stays with us and it might go dormant, and sometimes we've never had it, or sometimes it leaves right when you start complying with all the different requirements we have as educators, especially with you being in a core subject. There's so many expectations.
I did all those like Indigo personality tests, and this is going to shock you, Kanisha, but my compliance score was the lowest in the school. So,
yeah, maybe that's why we're also friends, but I don't know.
I'm not so compliant.
Yeah, that's the thing that I am challenged by too, compliance and staying in lines.
Yeah. That's not my
It's not our thing. Is that maybe because we're Aquarians? I don't know. It's something.
It might be an Aquarius thing.
So I'm hearing, and tell me about this. So my next question was, what initiated your shift to, do more of the writing and the publishing and all that? But it seems like it's just always been really integrated into how you've approached your career as an educator. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but I would say too that when I began teaching, my desire to be a great teacher really did take up the creative parts of me, to be creative in the classroom, to be creative in how I approached instruction of writing. And so it took years like maybe a decade before I suddenly was like, oh, wait, I don't want to just make sure that they can express and be creative. That's me too. I want to make sure that that's something that I also pursue and achieve, because it's super important to
Yeah.
goals I set for myself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things I've noticed or witnessed is the students that you serve, and then the colleagues that you serve, and then the participants in your consulting, they see you walking the talk, like it is who you are.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I
But
love
it
that.
wasn't, I would say, like, there was definitely a time where the bulk of my creativity went into what I did in the classroom and what I created for the classroom, which I'm still proud of, but that I needed to create more of a space for that. And that was something that needed to be sort of a conscious choice that I made. Like, okay, that's not enough. I'm glad they're creating, but I need to create too. Like,
I love it. I love it. I love it. So when you were saying like, I need to create, like, I'm glad my students, I'm glad the people I'm serving, participants are creating, did you have to deal with any identity risk? Meaning, I'm a teacher, I'm an English, I'm a language arts teacher, but I'm also this, like, how did you reconcile your various roles and the things that you were trying to breathe into all these different things you were doing at the same time?
yeah, sometimes it was a little rocky. I definitely had some moments where, I don't know, for example, I wrote a pretty, how shall I say, a pretty passionate poem about my husband. Luckily, I got it published, and that's great. But he also teaches, as you know, at the same school as me. And one day my students were like, guess what we looked up online? And I was like, oh, great. That's great. And they're seniors, and, I want them to know that I am also a writer. But let me just be honest, that wasn't a poem I was about to be bringing into class and teaching or anything. So, I had to really make sure that it was something I could make happen. And the same with sort of shifting how I teach and what I teach. I had to make sure I wasn't ruffling, I'm willing to ruffle feathers, but ruffling too many feathers.
Yeah.
That I was still prepping them or, meeting the standards. But then within what I was doing that met the standards, I was finding the room to pursue what mattered more to me.
I love that. I love that. I love that you were willing to step out of like what often educators are like, what looks like a teacher or who can do what, and what does that follow with your reputation. And like myself, when I think about it, and this, when I was leaving the university, when I just decided like, I've taken this as far as I can, I was doing a great job, great work. And then people are like, what are you doing? Why would you leave that job? And I was
something that is a dream in so many ways, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it just felt like the right time. My creativity needed to, have a place to bloom. And I'm not saying it was like so easy and I made the decision like this, it took some time for me to, be mature about it. And like, I have a family, I really need to not just be like losing my mind. But at the same time, I heard the internal call, right? I listened to my intuition. I took the risk. I took the shift. I took the identity risk and did all of that. And it's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
since then, and that was dangerous. But it was. I mean, it was dangerous and it was wild. And I think that people were like, "What is she doing?" And what you did was so powerful. But it was brave too. It took some bravery for you to do that.
Thank you. And a little ranting and, our little get-togethers, all good things. So who supported you, or how did you get support when you're doing all your shifting? Like, how do you manage all that? I mean, you have a whole family. We've seen the beautiful family. I mean, it's not like you're just like, I have idle time.
Well, I think I'm exceptionally lucky in Bobby, my husband, that he is so willing to. This summer, for example, he ran and he called it Daddy Camp, and it had a Google Calendar, and it was every day so that I could do my creative writing for a minimum of 5 hours every single day of the summer. And I busted out a novel, and then my college-age daughter was my editor, and she read the whole thing and made me all these comments, and the comments were things like, wow, and this makes no sense, and she's in college. But it was great, and it really was that was not me working in a vacuum by any stretch. Like, that was a whole family rallying behind me, and I feel exceptionally lucky that they were willing to do that, because creativity takes time, it takes financial commitment, it takes, all kinds of emotional energy that sometimes is really hard to summon.
Yeah. I love the family rallying. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's just so amazing. And what a gift. Like, that's such a great investment. Oh my gosh, just to be able to write like that and just be in your zone. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this novel now.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, my house was never clean and still isn't, but you gotta make decisions, right?
Exactly. I mean, same when people are like, how do you have time to spend all the time journaling and crafting, whatever? I'm like, because I have laundry and baskets, people.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Because I'm
mean,
not.
that's the reality. You just make the
Yes.
different decisions of, what is a priority. Yeah. And yeah, and for both of us, being with our families, having time to create and being, experts in our craft, those are important things. And on my list, being an expert in a very clean home, not quite on my list.
I hear you.
So yeah. So what kind of freedoms have you felt or experienced, during your shift in prioritizing your creativity?
So it's interesting because it has made me a better teacher, which is ironic because I thought that was what was holding me back, right? So in my sort of narrative, I was like, well, teaching's holding me back. But then, interestingly, as I decided, like, no, I need to be more creative and I need to make it a priority, I also found that in the classroom, I was celebrating and expecting way more creativity. And that, you know, didn't harm my AP scores and made the students so much more invested and engaged in what I was doing. So it was an interesting thing to note that it didn't just shift for me in the process of shifting myself and aligning how I spent my time with my priorities. Because I might say before, well, I prioritize creativity, but if you watched how I spent my time, that didn't line up at all. Like,
Yeah.
I prioritize creativity, I say, but then I wasn't doing it. I was just saying it. And so making that shift did actually change how I chose to run my classroom as well, which was interesting.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah.
Right. And you do have other educators who come to observe you, isn't that correct? Like, to
Yeah.
learn about what you do? I love it. Okay. So, if you're talking to another person, or maybe you and I are in a conversation with someone and they're on the brink, the cusp of thinking about making a shift within their educational career, taking all that expertise and experience and like blooming it into something else and shifting it to something else, what words of advice, inspiration would you offer?
I would just say, and I think this is really hard for teachers because so much of what we do seems like it's in this literal and figurative little box of teaching, that the skills translate so well to other areas, and that there's such an openness in terms of the way that what you do to run a classroom and plan and grade and see the whole scope of all these learners happening in their different zones, that is already, for me, a creative act, and for other people it's already an act of management. And whatever it is that they're dreaming and seeing, that what seems like, and I'm going to say this in quotation marks and use the dreaded air quotes, what seems like just teaching and that you're just a teacher, that actually that contains multitudes. And I think that that's a pretty valuable thing to recognize and know.
To recognize and know it contains multitudes. Yeah, I have to get that down because I think we sell ourselves short on where else we can be impactful.
That's
If we're not just in that oasis of the classroom, or just in that administrative role, or just with that tied to that one institution, we feel like there's nothing else, and there's just so many other things. And I mean, you've talked about your innovation course, but I always say that when I'm working with my own clients who are typically educators, women in transition, I always say, if you didn't have to have the regulations, policies, and all that, what would you do? And then like the ideas just pour forth. And then I don't think people spend enough time actually exploring those. which is the unfortunate part because
you feel very constrained, and you have to
yes.
you have to mentally let the constraints go as well as actually. And I think that's hard. It's hard. They need you.
Yeah, well, this is why Carrie and I think this program is so powerful. Well, not think, we know it's really powerful because we've gone through it. We're living it, we've gone through it, and I feel like teachers are great storytellers in the sense of sharing experiences and being honest about, that was kind of like a dud, but this, on the other hand, or this person or this resource, like when we get something good, we want the world to know about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what we want to do.
Yay.
So
thank you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. So, True Confessions. Let's see.
I have so many. Okay.
So what do you think is if you had to tell a group of like new educators or people interested in education about one of the zaniest things that has ever happened as a teacher and educator, and they should just strap in and be ready, what would you tell them, or what story would you share?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I had a story that was published in Chicken Soup of the Soul for Teachers. There was a teacher's edition of that. And this is a true story. And it's one of my best and one of my worst stories. My mother was dying, and I know you know that this happened, and she's dying while I'm teaching, right? And every teacher knows that that's the hard part, is that life doesn't stop because you have to go to work. And so I had to bring her something on my off period that she needed while she was in intensive care in the hospital. So I'm crazy and emotional, and I run my mother what she needs at the hospital, and then there's traffic on the way back, and I'm late to class. And it's 10th graders. It's British literature. We're doing Frankenstein. And I have this class full of every miscreant in the school. And I'm like, awesome. They're starting fires and getting pregnant, and it's all my fault, right? Like, it's clearly my fault that this is happening. And I get back to the school and I'm hyperventilating. I'm super upset. I'm like, I can't believe I'm late. And that I'm, this is like the number one thing you're not supposed to do. And I walk in, and this delightful 10th grader who doesn't really like school and wears his like really tight skater pants, he is up at the front of the room teaching Frankenstein, asking people how society makes monsters, and just running the class. And they're sitting there like church mice, just totally teaching themselves because they just want to do whatever it is that I want them to do, and feeling that compassion and that love in that moment was so powerful and so necessary. And I was like, okay, and to tell a new teacher who would be like, OMG, you left.
I'm getting fired,
right? You left 10th graders unattended. Surely you're fired.
Yeah.
And here I am telling the story now. I'm like, actually, nobody knew, because they handled it so beautifully. And in the craziest moments where, you suddenly like have to run out of the classroom because you have a urine emergency or whatever, then when you think the worst is going to happen, it doesn't. And these beautiful, beautiful students just really step up.
Well, I think that says a lot about how you build actual relationships with your students. I've seen it. So that's powerful. So, Kristie, if our viewers want to learn more about you, about your work, your events, where can we find information about you?
Okay, so I have an Amazon page. This is my published poetry book. It's called Underworldly, but I have a book of short stories coming out in March.
Hold that back up. Let people see it longer. Yes, there we go. There we go. Woo!
And I have a book of short stories called Fire in the Hole, and that's coming out in March, and that's available for pre-order on Amazon. So I am following your advice, and you continue to inspire me, Kanisha, now and always. And I'm really trying to make sure that I can be creative in addition to whatever else I do professionally, because it just matters. And I will not be, a fulfilled professional if I don't pursue these dreams. So I got to shift it.
I love it. I love it. we're going to have more information about Kristie that you can find in our video notes. So if you didn't get the website, it'll be in the video notes. So check that out. Read her work. It's very powerful. I'm a little biased because she's my girl, but it's great work. And Kristie, I just really appreciate how thorough, honest, real you were in talking about, doing your shift and tell as we're doing here with this interview series, because I feel like if we don't have the safe space to share how we pursue these other things and still are supporting communities and school buildings and children and families, then people are not going to explore what is possible and make their shift. So thank you so much for
well, thank you for what you're doing, because people need the support. It's scary. It's scary to try to shift. It is. And you're so brave for doing it, and thanks for helping others.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. If you want to learn more about the SHIFT framework and the Creative Educator Collective, check out our website, creativeeducatorcollective.com. We're also on social media, Creative Educator Collective. You can check out more information in the video notes. And also you can learn more about me, Kanisha, at boldlivingtoday.com. So think about how you want to be more creative, take some gems from Kristie, and get ready to shift. Thanks, Kristie.
Thank you, Kanisha.